Why is it called The Girl in the Cupboard? It was a cupboard above the stairs that was in my bedroom. And growing up in my household was not an easy ride. It was at a time quite frightening and extremely difficult for a young child to navigate. And I would go and hide in that cupboard. So I discovered that actually my father, my biological father, wasn't my father. I ran away from home many times to start a new life. At 16, I was able to do it. Welcome to The Girl in the Cupboard. This is my new podcast, and I thought it would be a really good idea to kickstart this podcast by explaining exactly what is the girl in the cupboard and the reasons behind me doing it. So for me, at the age of 52, I did a random, now I know it isn't random, DNA test, and I'll explain later in all the episodes, which then I discovered that my biological father actually wasn't my real father. It was a real surprise. I wasn't looking for a father. I was actually looking just to trace our DNA through and do our family tree, because after my mum passed, then I'm the eldest in our family. So I thought that I would complete that family tree for everybody. So I discovered that actually my father, my biological father, wasn't my father at all. And also a bigger blow, that I was actually half German and not Cornish. Ask any Cornish person out there, proud to be fully Cornish. So that was a real blow too. So that one test gave me a new dad, a sister, another brother, a stepmum, and an entirely new family. A family that I wasn't used to. I never really had a proper family unit. So over the last 4 years, that has actually been a growing experience. And my first episode will be my stepmum coming on and explaining. We'll talk more about that in the episodes coming up. So you can imagine reaching your 50s and suddenly discovering that half of everything that you believed about your identity, actually not even half, all of your identity was completely wrong. Now, why is it called The Girl in the Cupboard? Now, this is a little bit of a sensitive topic. And actually, I've spoken to people about this, and we all have a safe place. I thought it was just me. And I would really love to know what your safe space is to go, whether it be a cupboard, whether it be the gym or just a park or the shed in the garden. Where do you go to feel you're safest, to have time on your own, to figure out what's going on? For me, mine actually was a cupboard. It was a cupboard above the stairs that was in my bedroom. And growing up in my household was not an easy ride. It was at a time quite frightening and extremely difficult for a young child to navigate. When there was difficult times, fighting and other stuff going on in the house, then I would go and hide in that cupboard, and often go in with my little torch and read my little magazine and sleep there too. And it was a place where I felt the safest. People didn't look for me there. So, yeah, never got busted. So that was my safe space. And I'll go through childhood traumas again in different episodes. We'll be having guests coming on that have kindly talked. We'll be talking about their situations growing up. We're going to be talking about DNA, adoption, fostering, and just childhood memories that didn't make sense at the time, but makes sense now. So our guests coming on will definitely be talking about stuff like that. So for me, growing up, always felt different to other people out there. I really can't put my finger on it, but I was just really aware that I felt different. I didn't look that different because I have a very strong Indian heritage, and so that dark look was consistent in my family. Now, what it is interesting is that everybody in my family all the girls in the family have. All the girls in the family have really, really straight hair. And my mum and her twin sister both had completely straight hair. All their photos as children were completely straight hair. But I had really, really, really curly hair, and it was a slight reddish tint to it. And actually throughout my whole life, I was always trying to get rid of this red tint because it wasn't the same as everybody else. So, but I thought it was associated with my mum, but I think actually this was trying to make myself fit in. And my mum actually throughout her whole life had a perm, so she curled her hair constantly. She also dyed her hair red too. I think again that was to fit in with me. I feel for sure that my mum did know that my original dad wasn't my real dad, and I found a letter through her belongings and that had my real dad's name in it. So I think she did know. And, we were talking the 60s. My mum had a very difficult life herself. She was born in India with her twin sister. They moved from India to the UK age 13. They actually turned 14 on the boat, and they had family here on my granddad's side, on her dad's side, and they just didn't settle in. So within a year, both her parents actually passed away. And so they're at the age of 14, both of them were left in the house. There is a story that my mum always used to tell us that she was actually left in the house for 3 days with her dead mum, who died of an asthma attack in bed, and before she was taken away. So you can imagine how that must have affected them. Her story is that their family didn't want to take them because there was 2 of them, and that they were put into a home. I later found out actually that's not 100% true from my cousin Penny, who grew up with her. So it'd be interesting. I might get Penny on the show. She's hilarious. So she had a very difficult time, my mum. By the time that she was of age to leave foster care or any kind of care, she was out of there on a bus to Cornwall, and that's where she stayed the rest of her life until she passed away. She was very, very young when she had me. I think she was probably about 19, 20 when she was pregnant. And I can imagine, discovering that you're pregnant with the person that was the person that got you pregnant, my dad. And the situation is that he had no idea whatsoever. Mum moved house, was gone a week. He then went back to Nottingham, which is where he lived, because he was just down for the summer working. And that was it. There was no telephones, there was no address. So there was no way of contacting him or tracing him down. So I can imagine the panic that Mum must have had when she found out on her next cycle that she was pregnant, and whether there was another man on the scene or there was a quick move on and there was another man, my dad on paper. I can't tell you because she's not here, but I don't have any anger or anything in me to be bitter, towards my mum. I put myself in people's shoes all the time and go, how would I feel about that? I can only imagine how scared and how frightened she would have been to discover that. And she was on her own. She had no family. Her twin sister was living her life in a different country, and she was on her own. I forgive her. There isn't anything to forgive really, because she gave me life, and actually I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have my family that I've got now. I wouldn't have my son if things were different, because I might not be here. So there isn't anything for me to forgive. I just wished that I found out earlier. I wish that we could have had a conversation and me take that pressure away from her, because it was definitely on her mind 100%. Because there were hints throughout our conversations. Mum and I weren't close. I left home as soon as I could at 16 for reasons which will come up in conversations with other people in the podcast, but it wasn't safe for me to be at home. So legally, when I could leave, I did. And I started my own life. And there were times and years apart where there wasn't connection. And, a lot of that was on her terms. she couldn't cope with family sometimes and would push us all away. The conversations that I had with my mum, were little snippets. About her conversation that she had with her friend Michelle, and said she said, "Oh, Michelle says that your dad's not your dad. Why would she say that?" And that was her opening line, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to react to this. Because I've always felt that I was different. So, like, having a conversation sometimes with my mum could turn so quickly, and so I didn't want to poke a bear and run the risk of a flare up, a bus stop. So I sort of said, "Oh, that's peculiar. Look at that fish," and just moved swiftly on. But that conversation happened a couple of times, and I really think she wanted me to talk to her about it. But the fact that she said, "Well, of course he's your dad. Why would he not be your dad?" Blah blah blah, so it made me feel that actually she wasn't open to a conversation. I think maybe she was saying it maybe because there was somebody saying things, and maybe I might hear about it. So it would be then for me to squash it if it did come round my way. Funny enough, I did talk to Michelle after Mum had passed away, to let Michelle know that Mum had gone. And I asked her the question, look, was my dad my dad? This is before the DNA, actually. And she was a bit like, oh, wanted to talk about it and sort of thing. And she said, well, yeah, yes, of course he's your dad, and, sort of thing. And, and then, so I think she probably knew. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, it doesn't change anything. Here I am. But there were other little snippets around sort of, at some point, I actually thought that I was half Chinese because I have got those sort of features, and my skin, my complexion is a little bit Asian, so I did think maybe I was a bit Chinese, and then I found loads of things in Mum's paperwork that were all like little Chinese notes that she put away, and we were trying to translate them and everything, and there was handwritten notes in Chinese, but I think it was just a friend, because there weren't anything, like Happy Christmas and all that sort of stuff. But yes, and all this information that I found out after her death was found in bits of paperwork. My mum was a hoarder, thank goodness, because when she passed away, we all got told the day after she passed away, by the people that were left her estate and instructions. And we did find out that Mum tried to change her will a couple of days before she passed away by asking a friend to help her change it, her neighbour. And it was a really awful situation, because by the time that we were invited to come into the house, and in fact we were only invited to come into the house because they wanted help clearing it. I literally was inches away from buying a skip to hiring a skip for everything to be put into, when a friend stopped me and said, no, that should come out of her estate. But they had removed all information, like financial information, bank statements, that sort of thing. In fact, Mum had a life policy and she did have money in the bank, and a plan for her funeral too. But all those things were removed, or so they thought. But in stuff that they thought was just rubbish, junk, was actually little notes from Mum that she'd scribbled about her life story. So I'll share that letter that I found from Mum, but that was an insight actually, to how she was feeling at the time. I don't know when she wrote it, whether it was towards the end, because we had a 10-year gap. But yes, so that is sort of my DNA discovery of my dad and everything. And got in touch. So I sent an email to my mother-in-law, and I'll let her explain the story actually in the next episode. But put it this way, my timing is not great. It landed in her inbox on the most inappropriate days, but I'll let her explain. It is quite a funny story. But yes, so I had contact with my dad. I spoke to him on the phone first time, which was very odd, because I didn't really have time to think about what he sounded like. I knew that he was half German, but he was living in Nottingham. But I never thought for 1 minute that he had a northern accent, and he was as northern as you get. It was the most bizarre thing. But hearing a voice that is your father for the first time at my age was, yes, really like a real sliding doors situation. It was just odd. It was but wonderful at the same time. And we arranged to meet, and I went to them because actually my dad was really poorly. When I met him, he had advanced Parkinson's, so he wasn't that great at getting around. Although actually he did come to my way, London, which is quite lovely. And yeah, we had 2.5 years of fast track father and daughter getting to know you chat, a bit like speed dating. What's your favourite colour? What's your favourite broccoli? What's your favourite this and that and that? And just getting to know each other and actually talking about stories of our childhood and talking about his childhood in Germany and stuff like that. And that was lovely. She brought back memories for him, stuff that he had forgotten over the years. And, there was a couple of tearful moments too, things that he'd forgotten because he was born in the war and he was left in Germany while his mum remarried and came to UK to build the new life to bring him over. So he was looked after by his grandmother and family in Germany. So I think he was about 11 by the time that he came over, which must have been quite upsetting. And he didn't know any English either, but he learnt very quickly by school friends. He used to say to me, they'd come out of school and they would all walk home and his friends would go, tree, door. Like that's how he learned English. I think it's adorable. So cute. Yeah, so it did bring back a lot of memories for him too. So I think he had a bit of comfort in that. And then, of course, I went to Nottingham and I met all the family, basically, which was lovely. And we had photographs. All the old photographs came out. So it was really lovely to be included, to be wanted, because I have actually felt throughout my whole life that I was always a hindrance. Mum having children definitely stopped her life and trapped her really because she had to stay and look after the children. She was on her own pretty much on and off throughout her whole life. She just married wrong. And I remember feeling quite guilty for stopping her travelling. I think she would have travelled and she loved, getting on just random transports and exploring and stuff like that. She had a dreadful life, really, which is really upsetting. And, she married a man that was just awful. I remember age 6 in court with my mum, and my mum was trying to get more mains for my brother and I. Now, bear in mind, I think she was on 50p a week. And so I think she was trying to get £1, and he just stood in court, and actually quite rightly so. But I wasn't to know that I wasn't his daughter, but he stood in court and went, I'm not paying for her because she's not my daughter. I was 6. So yeah, I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but there definitely is a time and a place that he could have written that down somewhere and given it to the judge, maybe. But from early on, I think that probably was my trigger to feel that I was not his daughter. So why am I doing this podcast? This podcast has been something that has been in the back of my mind for a very long time. In fact, The Girl in the Cupboard was the title of a book that I've tried to write on and off through my life, starting with my mum's story, because I think it's important to know my mum's story to understand my story, and just not getting there because it was quite upsetting in places to write it. And then I thought, what, I could actually do something that might actually help other people. My dad knew that I wanted to do maybe a podcast. I have another podcast that I do called Wedding Mayhem. It's all about weddings. They're completely different. Go and check it out on YouTube. 7.3 million at the moment. So I'm not new to podcasting, but this is really quite personal to me. Love long lost families. The whole family do. And said, you should do something. You should write a book. You should do something. And I said, Dad, well, maybe I'll do a podcast one day on it. And he was like, yay, do it. So yes, so here we are. So The Girl in the Cupboard is a podcast about DNA. It's about fostering, adoptions. Have you got a story to tell? have you been adopted? Were you fostered? Did you not know that you were? Have you unearthed a DNA that has shocked you? And have you discovered new family that you never knew existed? I would love to hear your story. And I think that if we can all get together and talk about where we come from, and it will definitely help. I didn't have any help when I found mine. I wasn't looking for my biological father. I was just looking for the DNA with family in India and trying to do mum's family tree and stuff like that. Yeah, it was a big shock, and luckily I have had the most amazing experience with it. But I will say that it's still been very hard to navigate how I feel, and how to deal with it, because suddenly having no family, I've lived my life on my own. I left home so early. I ran away from home prior to be, 16 many times to start a new life. At 16, I was able to do it. And I've never had a family unit before. I've never gone on holidays with families. I find that really weird that people would go on holiday with family. I honestly I do, until it happened to me. Never gone on holidays with families. I find that really weird that people would go on holiday with family. I honestly I do, until it happened to me. And we actually did go on holiday together, to scatter Dad's ashes, and that was a eye-opening experience. Seeing how people move with each other, the dynamics in the family. When to let something go, when something kicks off, and how people manage with each other. And I'm like this person going like a fly on a wall a little bit. Luckily, I took my trainers with me because I run London marathons, and that was always my go-to, to get out of conflict at home when I was younger. Stick the trainers on and go for a run. And I did that a couple of times when we went away, just to clear my head and get my head together, going, I don't understand what's going on. But I get it now. Family holidays, I get it. I don't think I want to do it all the time. Just put it out there. I do like my space. I like to be alone quite a lot. Yeah. So if you've had an experience that I have had, I would love to hear from you. If you can help somebody tell your story, you may even save a life from telling your story. That pain to power, it is very powerful. If you can see other people navigating it and surviving it, it would encourage you and help you along the way. It is a minefield out there. You may be thinking about, deciding to do it, but thinking, oh God, I don't know whether I'm built to do this, whether I'm emotionally stable enough to do it. And this guides you, then that would be great. That would be really, really, really great. It can be quite frightening. It can be quite, you don't know what you're doing, really. You could be contacting anybody. Sending that DNA swatched in, I didn't think for 1 minute that it would come back with a dad. But, and then when it did, then suddenly I thought, oh my God, well, who is this person that gave me life? Could my mum have been, raped? Could she have been bullied into it? Could she have been coerced into it? Was it a one night stand? Was it this? All these things then started getting into my head, and actually it was really, really a panicky time. And until I spoke to him, and luckily Sharon, my stepmom, actually was the one to reply back. So we had that communication, and that really put me at ease. But, it also then makes you question who that person is that gave birth to you. That person who I thought was my mum, who I knew inside and out. I knew when she was about to go off on one. I knew how to manage her. And suddenly I'm like, I don't know who you are. Who are you? And that feeling of being betrayed a little bit, lied to, again, was hard to navigate. So although I have had a really positive experience, there was a lot of conflict in here. So if this podcast helps anybody out there, then I am so, so grateful. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel. We're hoping to get an episode out every 2 weeks, but it may well be ad hoc because we have just started. So subscribing and following us is really, really important, because it will notify you when a new episode comes through. And these are real people coming in and telling their real stories. So I do ask you to be respectful. If you're leaving a comment, please make it lovely. Not negative. Let's make it positive. Let's have a positive channel. If you're a troll, you will be deleted, because these people are also going through their own conflicts, and the last thing they want to see. If you have a DNA discovery that you want to discuss or you weren't expecting, I want the highs and I want the lows, and I also want the funnies too. There's got to be some funnies in there somewhere. We also need to talk about donor conception as well. Eggs are being donated for, women to be, pregnant with. Suddenly you discovered that, has that happened to you? This has been going on a long, long time now, but I want this channel for our guests to be heard, supported, and never judged. So my story is why this podcast began, but the Girl in the Cupboard is not about me. It is a community. We'll be asking everybody to explain their stories in full. If you would like to come on, I would love to hear from you. You can come on and be anonymous if you want. You can come on and do a face-to-face with me on camera. You can write in your stories and I can do a readout. People have said to me, when you do listeners' questions, I should go into a cupboard and read them out. Maybe I will. What do you think? But thank you again for coming on board. Thank you for listening to my new show. I'm already proud of it, for the amount of people that are getting in touch and being brave, so brave. Some of these stories are blowing my mind. We live on this earth with people going through horrific stuff, and it does make you grateful for the good times that we do have in our lives. So whatever your story, you deserve to be heard, and you should never have to carry this alone. Thank you to everybody for all your kind messages so far, and welcome to the Girl in the Cupboard. See you soon. Bye.